Hello. We are starting our Thursday Thrive, and I am Susan Julie Gonzales, and I am so happy to be here. I have been contemplating this for some time, so I'm going to do things a little bit different. So before we start, I would like to give you a number for your contribution to Centers for Spiritual Living Inner Journey. And that phone number, if you want to take it now, 405-337-9739. And the name attached to this is Harmony. And so I wanted to just put that out there now. And when we end, we'll just close out with our treatment. So this is exciting. So this particular topic, I've added to it, and I have contemplated it a little more in depth with the addition in the recent past. And before I start with that, I'd like to have that everyone feels welcome to have a seat at the table in this conversation. So if you would like to contribute to you have a thought about it, please, let's have a seat at the table. And the topic that I want to look at is heaven and hell with purgatory involved, with the conclusion of forgiveness and acceptance. There's a biblical quote that has really stuck with me, and this is the first time that I talked about this quote was probably in the early time of my being here, 2010-ish, when I started, maybe 2012, 13, around that time period. And there's a particular biblical quote that's, "The kingdom of heaven is at hand." I don't know if you're familiar with that quote or not, but I've contemplated that for some time. And when I read that, it's the kingdom of heaven is right here, right now, right where we are. And in this place of knowing it's right here, right where we are, I am going to pray us in, because this is the place that we always are. We are always in the kingdom of God. And I claim and affirm that as we have this hour together, that we bring our ideas, we bring our principle, we bring our knowingness in how these words and these ideas that we have had implanted in us from the very beginning, how they have affected and shaped our world in which we live at large. And I claim and affirm that right here and right now, that all is done with ease and grace and compassion effortlessly. And I know this for myself, and I know this for each and every one of us, that we have something juicy to bring to the potluck of this evening's consciousness. And I give thanks. I give thanks, and I just say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Amen.
And so it is.
So that idea of the kingdom of heaven is at hand, has everybody heard that, or has that ever been a contemplation for you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And so for when I hear that, and I look at the kingdom of heaven is at hand, and with our science of mind principles, we always have the polar opposite. There is that polar opposite that we can slip into. And so if the kingdom of heaven is at hand, so is hell. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Hell is at hand also. And so how do we maneuver into being in the kingdom of heaven without slipping into hell or finding ourselves in purgatory? I don't know if that is a term that you grew up with or that you're familiar with. And I would love, there's a mosquito going around, would love some some input and your ideas and thoughts on purgatory, if this is something that you have looked at or contemplated or grew up with.
Yes, I grew up with purgatory.
Yes, and how was that for you? What was that view?
Purgatory was kind of like a holding space.
A holding space?
A holding space. Yes, it was like you weren't good enough to get into heaven, but you were not bad enough to go to hell. So therefore, you stayed in purgatory until you worked off your transgressions. And
Okay.
so when I left the Catholic Church, I left that behind. And I'm not thinking there's a hell. I'm going to
Me
argue.
either.
It's like, no, the opposite of heaven is not hell. There is no opposite of heaven. There's
So tell
only
me,
one.
so this is my perception. Anybody else want to have something to say on purgatory or hell and heaven?
So purgatory is not a word of my past. I was raised Protestant, and it was not really a word. The word hell was the word. So as a result of that, obviously I had heard it, hadn't discussed it or studied it much. I always just thought it's synonymous with hell, and that you would be forever in purgatory is kind of how I guess naively thought of it. One and the same as hell. It was a place.
Yes.
Yeah. You didn't want to be.
Yeah, right. Reverend Lynn, Marilee?
Well, much like Diane, I grew up Protestant, but I knew it, so it was not really part of my everyday spiritual education, but I did know what it was because I had Catholic friends, and my family embraced visiting other congregations and religious modalities, even though we were mainly Methodist and Presbyterian. But to me, it was like you had, Sue Ellen, I think that was you that said you had to just do monumental acts of forgiveness and goodness and piety and whatnot to get yourself out of purgatory. But yes, it was like an ongoing sort of hellish spot because it took so long and such an effort to get out of it. So.
Right.
So that was my perspective.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Reverend Lynn?
I'm thinking she's cooking.
Right.
She's cooking?
Yeah, I think she's probably just listening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she said she'd mostly be listening.
Oh, okay. I missed that little piece. And so one of the pieces of purgatory and hell that I have, if the kingdom of heaven is at hand and it is a state of consciousness that we live in, knowing the truth of our being, and for whatever situations or adventures, views, situations that have shown up in life, that there is that and I am so grateful to this philosophy in knowing truth principles and knowing there's nothing to be healed but the truth to be revealed. And one of the things with purgatory for me in growing up was that it wasn't something that was done that I was able to do. My understanding and the perception that I got was that someone out here, the people out here that were still walking the planet, had to pray you out of purgatory. And as I thought about this and our science of mind principles and what hell is, and hell and purgatory, to me, they are very, very similar in how I view them today. And those words of self-talk of ourselves or of others that create a vibrational tone of other than love. As Reverend Sue Ellen, there's no hell, there's just only heaven. And so That's fabulous. And so how do we get to that consciousness where that is where we live? And so I know for myself that in the recent past, the so heaven, the contemplation of heaven, for me, this with this one particular biblical verse started in my beginning time as a practitioner, and then the idea of there's nothing to be healed but the truth to be revealed. And so that's an Ernest Holmes quote, and that is one of the most fabulous quotes. And so as I have entered in, this is my this August will be my 14th year as a practitioner, and the contemplation of that one particular quote of Ernest Holmes, that particular, there's nothing to be healed but the truth to be revealed. And that truth of revealing takes many shapes. If we can come to that place of truth revealing of our experiences, where there is no longer any guilt, any shame, any shoulda, woulda, coulda's, or whatever it may be, as in continuing to turn back to what did not happen or what happened. And as I've contemplated this purgatory, I realized how long I had lived in purgatory. Mm-hmm. How long I had taken on others the blame and shame. Now, this is my anecdotal, but if we're looking at principle, that it doesn't matter what that thing is that we've hung on to, that is a shoulda, woulda, coulda, or the shame or the guilt, or any word that vibrates in that is not in our highest and most holy good. Whatever that is, it brings that vibrational tone down, brings that thing that we are into another place of not expressing its fullness. There is so this is another really biblical quote that I just sing and dance with. It's that we're created in the image and likeness of God. Right. And that is in Genesis, I think it's 1:26, right in there. We're created in the image and likeness of God, where God says, let us create in our, he says, man, in the biblical term, it's man, but let us create human in our image and likeness. And so it is not of the flesh that is that, but it is of the spirit. And so if we move to Galatians, where we have, what is that? What is the spirit? What is that? What are the qualities? What are those things that make up that image and likeness of God, of the divine? Love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. And all those words, I believe, that resonate in that vibrational tone of our true essence, of that which we are by our birthright. And there, in that journey of life, there may be things that show up that make us feel less than, or that somewhere we got a misconception, a message that a sin, right? As Ernest Holmes says, the sin is missing the mark, that someone missed the mark when they told us who and what we are. And they didn't know who and what they are, because if they knew who and what they are, that would not be happening. Because that's where we come from, right? That's who we are. And so in this thing, I have been contemplating, and it's amazing how when we're ready to transform, transmute, and transcend the old ideas, those mistakes, those sins, as Ernest Holmes calls it, missing the mark. All it is missing the mark. Get up and go try again. And at times those things of get up and try again, we could be walking in a spiritual, metaphysical, metaphoric sense. We could be walking with a limp, or we could like hobbling, or whatever it is, to go get that arrow. And in this practice of being a practitioner and having a regular prayer partner and having a regular regular time with a practitioner allows those things to, for me, any of those things that have been hanging on, I know, and I'll share with you the, in my early 18-ish, I had a violation that happened to me. And in that way, I took on the guilt, the shame, the Catholicism of what that meant. It was a family encounter that I experienced. And so for many, many years, I looked at it askew. I looked at it askew and found for myself that my life is fabulous. I am at the place where I can like turn and look, and that thing that I was needing, that I was thinking is right there. And my response to that is thank you, thank you, thank you. Or, oh my God, I love you. Right. That thing that I was thinking about is right there. Walking in thanksgiving and gratitude, no matter what happened in the past. But every now and then, to get out of that guilt, shame, whatever it is, there needs to be a little click, a turn, a light shed, the door opened, the sunroof opened, to allow the light of our being, knowing that there is nothing that is ever held against us. There's absolutely no thing. And as Ernest Holmes says, when that thing is forgiven, it is when we put it down. When we put it down, then we've paid the last farthing. I don't know, is that $1 or is that 50 cents? I'm not sure, but the last farthing, that's when we are ready to put it down. And putting it down is not taking it and bringing it back in the forefront of our lives. Then we become like Lot's wife, looking back, hindering the divine flow of that joy and that peace and that goodness and that love that we are. Even though we may be, I know for myself, you wouldn't have thought that I was running from my good. I have lots of good, but I've been running from my good. For that experience, I took it on as it was my fault. And so of the invitation and why I share that is those things that we perceive from the outside that come in, that we take responsibility for something that was not ours. It was ours at some way of right consciousness, because nothing comes to us unless it's ours. And I'm not quite sure how that was mine at that age, but it took this long to work itself out. Someone asked a question, and in that question was the contemplation. And in that contemplation, I realized the truth. And in that realizing the truth, I reached out. I reached out, who knew the truth even deeper and harder for me at that particular moment in time. And that, oh my goodness, what a gift this philosophy is. What a gift understanding that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, and it is ours to know the truth. And so I do want to leave it open for conversation and input and your perceptions and your revealings of truth and how that's worked for you. Would anybody like to say something?
I can start with some comments. So I really, if that's okay, unless someone else wants to.
Yes.
Go right ahead, Diane.
Okay. I loved your statement of what you added to the phrase, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, and adding that is when we're in a state of consciousness, knowing the truth of our being. as well
Yes.
as the being of all, right? So when I heard you say that as we go through life, one could also say hell is at hand.
Yes.
My take on that was an ebb and flow. How for me, when I am not, I'll use your words, when I am not in a state of consciousness where I know the truth of my being, when I am not in that state, when I
Yes.
am separate from God, or like Wayne Dyer says, when your ego takes over, which he says, and I've always remembered this, ego stands for edging God out. And yeah,
Oh, I love that, Diane. I had not heard that before.
right.
Love it.
And when, when you are separate and you don't have a sense of oneness, and I'm not in a state of consciousness, knowing the truth, which in my earlier years of life, I didn't know this philosophy. I did not understand oneness. I did not understand spiritual truths. I did not know any of that. I thought I was all alone. I had been taught that I was a sinner. I'm not a sinner. I hated that. I rebelled against that, but it certainly, I struggled with that because my self-esteem was low to begin with, and then to be around a society that said you're a sinner. Anyway, I always didn't like that. So my life ebbs and flows. I'm not in this state of hell, which I'm calling separation from God or lack of consciousness of knowing my truth. I am not in that state as much as I was in the earlier part of my life, right? And as I have evolved spiritually, I viewed, it's onward and upward. I love how Ernest Holmes says that too, onward and upward. And I, view myself onward and upward. I might plateau, but maybe I'm ebbing and flowing at this level. Whereas before I was ebbing and flowing at this level, meaning in and out and higher with my state of consciousness versus sometimes, oh geez, I take on guilt, right? I'm doing my human thing. Sometimes I do that too. So anyway, what I'm saying is I view it as an ebb and flow, and but I do see myself, I'm onward and upward, getting better, better in my state of consciousness, higher on that spectrum that Stephen Hawkins has, right? Not at the lower energy levels. I'm more at these higher energy levels. But so anyway, thank you.
Thank you. That was fabulous. I like that. I love that ego edging God out. I never heard that before. That's fantastic. And that moving up in consciousness. I mean, once we know, we can't unknow it, and it just doesn't feel right to be in it, right? In that. So moving in that. And I love that. It's like the eagle soars higher and higher. We just continue to expand our consciousness, expand our awareness of who we are, right? Of our being, of our true nature. Yeah. Thank you, Diane. Anybody else?
I'm thinking that I'm just going to make a kind of a broad statement here, that when we are in that place of humanness where we're not in complete divine alignment, perhaps that's our purgatory.
Yes, exactly. That's it. Yes,
It's
yes,
not hell.
yes,
There is
yes,
no hell.
yes.
We're as I understood purgatory, it was a waiting place for going into God, and you understood that people had to be prayed out of it. Okay, if we put that all together and say, okay, we create our own purgatory by whatever it is
Yes.
we're doing and thinking, and perhaps it's up to us to pray us out,
Pray ourselves out.
pray ourselves out, or get someone to pray us out, as she suggested. That's called the practitioner, because they can know the truth of who you are so much easier than you can know the truth of who you are, or than I can know the truth of who I am when I'm in the muck.
Yes.
When I'm in
Yes.
it.
So true.
When I'm in it, I'm in it. You know, and somebody else can go, oh, Sue Ellen, you're not there. Let me know the truth for you, and here we are. So I'm thinking that perhaps all of this whole idea of purgatory-ish stuff that I threw out years ago, maybe as a place
Yes.
in my consciousness now, that when I am not in alignment, I am in a place of waiting, of learning how to move myself back into alignment.
Yes. Yes. I'm excited. I love it.
Like, okay, well, you brought up the idea, and then
Yes. Yes.
you know,
Yes.
as happens when we do these Thrive things, the discussion gets richer as we all participate in
Yes.
the ideas that come to us.
Mary Lee?
Well, I feel very much like, not exactly like Diane, but before I started to study religious science, I didn't think of myself as a sinner, but did a lot of hand slapping if I made mistakes or didn't do something right. And when I began to study religious science and think about what is put into consciousness and the one mind, and that we do get back what we put into it, I think this consciousness is such a wonderful thing that just keeps evolving and like spinning upward. I think Diane uses like spiral, and it just keeps and for me it just grows, and it ascends, and I think too, I'm just doing all this agreeing, but I've come to part of all of this realization on my own, and it continues to evolve. But I think Sue Ellen, I think that's a wonderful way to think of it. If we fall out of alignment, then we do find and go back into our humanness, where we're not aligning ourselves with God consciousness. Then yes, we've created our own purgatory, our own stagnation. And I think, man, it just feels so much better. Just my relationship with myself, with other people, the spirit. I think, yeah, it's just a whole different feeling when I find I'm not in alignment, or I haven't tuned myself in there. So
Yes. Yes. There's another biblical term or another biblical phrase to in the part of forgiveness is, if you have something against your brother, and since there is only one of us here, that we are our brother, and that our bodies are taking the first hit of that vibrational tone of that thing that we're in purgatory for, or that we're walking around in shame, guilt, whatever it may be, right? In that negative vibration, that vibration that we'd rather be out of, right? And
right.
So leave your gifts at the altar and go and ask your brother for forgiveness.
Go and make
so
forgiveness with your brother. It's something like that.
Yes. It's the gist of it. And so as I was contemplating that one, I was thinking, and myself, it's all about me. It's all about me. And, Diane, that's a little tough with the ego thing, but because it's all about me. You show up in my life, it's about me. Right? we are the vibrational match of that which we are, right? That which shows up in my life is the vibrational match at some level, at some frequency of what I am, right? So and so in that, leaving the gifts at the altar, we are the altar, we are the temple. We are the temple of the Most High. This is where spirit is residing. When it's done with this body, with this suit, it's off to the next phase of our spiritual expression, of its spiritual expression, because this thing here is done. But that thing that I am is not, right? So
Right.
as I was thinking about the forgiveness, because that's really what being out of alignment is a lack of holding on to something that is not for our highest and most holy good, holding on to something that weighs us down instead of giving us that permission, or that, not even the permission, because we don't need permission to be joyful. That is what we are. And so allowing that thing to express itself fully with its divine nature, love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness. When we get out of alignment, when we get into that purgatory, and it's, there have been views of my life that I have seen where that dip was very low. And yes, it wasn't just the holding. Hey, it was a hellish place to be, but it's moving through it and getting out of there and finding and being in that place of knowing the truth. And so sometimes to know the truth, I have found in myself some resistance of sorts to, as I said, sometimes we have to call out for knowing the truth, right? We have to call out to our practitioner, to our ministers, to our friends who know the truth, not those who will join in that, for lack of a better word, cesspool that we've created in consciousness of that, right? Of that hellish place, but somebody who knows the truth of our being and gets us out of there, helps us move out of that onto the to higher ground, that helps us open ourselves at the top, right? To allow more of the goodness come through.
Yes.
So any thoughts that anyone would like to share?
I love your passion.
Oh, me too. And your energy. Yeah.
I know. I was like seeing you on the pulpit.
That was the impression that, yeah, I could just see Susan standing behind, like, and just walking back and forth, and it's to
Oh my goodness, that's exactly what I do, Marilee. That's a whoop.
That's a compliment. That's a
No,
compliment.
I think it's a compliment.
Yes, no, I
really
take it
did.
fully as a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So any thoughts about that you would like to add to any of it, any of the juiciness of?
Oh, I love the beautiful reminder that all of the God qualities of joy, love, peace, beauty, all of that
Yes,
we are that, right?
right.
And it's important to allow that to express through ourselves. Right. So that was a nice reminder.
Thank you.
You know,
And it's not, and I appreciate too, in a different way, it's not for our highest and best goods if people are just going to agree with you. You do, you know, that as you use the word cesspool, but if you're in it and just say, oh yeah, you're okay like that. You really, I think you're right. Those are the times when one really does need to connect with a fellow practitioner or a minister or a good friend that can help you to affirm the truth of who you really are, and not just agree to make you feel better or appease you for the moment or anything like that.
Right. Right. Yes. We're not looking for appeasement. We're not looking for, we're looking to get out of the mire. At least I am.
Exactly.
Out of the
Yeah.
muck.
Out of the muck. Yes. Yes. I mean, and it really does work. It does, this stuff really does work. And I had and Diane, those qualities that that you mentioned, that sometimes it's hard to see those in ourselves, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's hard to see that, and and it's important when we see that in others. There's a piece from the Parahasananda Yogananda that just how you read a book and there's something that sticks with you in that book. It may not be the whole book, but it could be one phrase. And that phrase is that you cannot be cognizant of something that's in someone else that's not in you.
Ah,
And there's that phrase that I was reminded of it. If you spot it, you got it.
right.
And it's not just the negative stuff.
No, that's fair.
Right? It's not the negative stuff. If you spot it, you got it.
Yeah, that's a
If
good
you-
reminder. Yeah.
Yes, if you spot something in someone else, it's a principle. If we're looking at principle, if we're looking at principle, it's all about principle.
Absolutely.
So if you spot it, you got it, baby.
I know.
You too.
That's a good point. I usually only use that in I don't know, I don't like this word, but this is the word that came in a situation of a behavior that's not, that's more negative, right?
Right.
And then the dynamics in maybe a group, that's when that comes to me, but I love thinking about that from the higher qualities of God.
Yes. And that, what we see, if you see someone walking through the store and you smile at them and they flash that smile back at you, you're flashing that same thing. You're seeing the mirror, right?
That's right.
You're
You
seeing the
spotted it,
mirror.
and yeah, you spotted it in them, and you've got it. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are some, so that's just
Mhm.
I think and that's new. That one showed up last night or the night before, that correlation between the Parahasananda Yogananda, and you spot it, you got it. It doesn't matter.
Right.
What are we focusing on, right? And what we're
Right.
focusing on when we're encountering other people is probably that same vibrational tone that we're focusing on ourselves, right? So
Yeah.
within, so without.
And while you're focusing and we're in the place of forgiving those others for whatever it is they did or think they did or whatever we think they did, remembering that there's only one of us here and we have that too,
Yeah.
then we need to remember to forgive ourselves for all of our opportunity. It's the Ho'oponopono thing. I'm sorry. Please forgive me for whatever I have done to create this situation. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you.
Yes. And one of the thank you for bringing the Ho'oponopono. That's been a mainstay. The other one, there's and I don't know why the biblical quotes have got me today. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. At the crucifixion, right? At the story of the crucifixion. And so we can do that for ourselves as well. For whatever it is, actions that were in the past, we can forgive, because we didn't know. There was and maybe we did know, but we went ahead and did it and didn't know the repercussions, because there's a law of cause and effect that is showing up in our lives, that is moving. And it's like, oh, whoa, when did this come into motion? And we can go back, and Ernest Holmes says, we don't need to know how it started. We just need to let it go. right? We need to let it go. Put it down now. Put it down. Put it down. So on that, I'm going to just, okay. I just wanted to check the time. I can't see the time since I have I'm using my phone. It doesn't show me the time as well as and Any thoughts or ideas that you'd like to add?
This has been a really good conversation. Thank you, Susan, Julie, and Sue Ellen, and Diane, and for a lot of things to
Well, good.
think about and
Good,
be
good.
reminded of. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
No, I just said a lot of good things things we've learned, things we've been reminded of, and it's all good and all appreciated. So
Thank you. Thank you. I love sharing this stuff. I do love this stuff. I love the stuff. Oh yeah. So let's go ahead and pray out, and just take a deep breath and let it go, and take another deep breath in, letting it go. And as we return to our regular breathing pattern, knowing that this is the breath of life, that this is the life force energy that is moving freely, easily, and effortlessly through our body temple, allowing this thing that is living me, that is breathing me, this spirit of life that is my very being on the planet. I say thank you. I say thank you for this amazing gift of life, for the view that I have today. The view that shows up each and every day, no matter the appearance. For when it appears to be anything other than this joyful la-di-da-di-da aspect of life, that is when I know I go deeper. This, in the midst of appearances, this too is God. This too is the divine life that I am living. And I claim and affirm for any situation that we may have hung on to, or that shows up in our lives that puts us into the waiting period, the holding tank, purgatory, whatever we want to call it, that we know the truth of our being and we know what to do. And I claim and affirm that we are always guided, guarded, and protected, that we, as quickly as we can, catch the error thought, catch the idea that no longer serves us, and allow it to be transformed, transmuted, and transcended. I give thanks for this opportunity. I give thanks for this time together. I give thanks for each and every person that has shown up today. I give thanks for Marilee passing her written exams. I give thanks for knowing her panels go with ease and grace, that they're smooth and easy. And I just claim that each and every one of us knows the truth of our being. As we know the truth of our being, we know the truth of those that we encounter, no matter the appearance. And I just rejoice and I give thanks and I celebrate this life that is the life of God expressing as us. Oh, I give thanks. And I allow this word to go forth and not return to me void, but it is complete in the matter for which it is sent, knowing that it is done, And I give thanks and I let go, I let God, and so it is. Amen.
And so it is. Amen. Amen.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
That was fun.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
Yes.